Well, hello, friends. Your friend David Valentin here again. This time to talk about the US U23 situation. I'm recording this the day after the United States lost 2-1 to Honduras, effectively eliminating them from from the Olympics, from participating in the Olympics, representing the U.S. in particularly football or soccer. Um, I have to say that it's frustrating um, that in the sport that I love, we run into situations like this. I feel that when it comes to the men's side of the house, we tend to run into situations in which we shoot ourselves on the foot. When the US loses, it does not matter to who, the trolls always come out. There's three types of trolls that come out. Number one, those that say, who cares? Nobody likes that sport here. Is a waste of time. Americans don't care for it, which I disagree with because the numbers in the national leagues, USL, MLS, um, NISA, MPSL, UPSL prove the contrary. Plus, you have people who follow overseas leagues here in the United States, and they pay for services to watch those leagues. They watch on cable. So the reality is that there's an interest. Is it the national obsession? No, and it probably never will be because in our country we have baseball, we have basketball, we have American football, we have hockey, and like I said before in videos and in personal conversations, the reality is that in the United States we have a landscape of sports where there's everything for everybody, unlike other countries where the offerings are minimal and football tends to be the top dog, the apex predator on that pyramid. Now, when it comes to the U23s, I think that we had a lot of talent in the roster. And some people will disagree with me and they will say, well, this guy wasn't good enough, that guy wasn't good enough, that guy wasn't good enough. It was our B, C, D team. Put whatever letter to it. The fact is that this generation of U23s is the first generation in American football born after the birth of MLS. And not only that, this is a generation that grew up with the sport being something other than an oddity that was played in ethnic clubs or in private schools or expat picnics or associations. This is the first time that we have a generation that was born on football, was bred on football, and had the aspirations of becoming professionals and actually staying in the United States and making good money at it. Generations past, the only option was I'm gonna be good at football. I'm probably gonna go to college, and then after that, I'm gonna try my hand overseas, most likely Mexico or Central American country, and I'm not gonna make any money at it. It's just gonna be an experience, so I can check that on my life experience box. That's basically it. Now, when you see the situation of last night, I called it from the very beginning. Jason Kreis, in my opinion, is a bad manager. He doesn't have the skills for the modern game. Jason Kreis was a player Jason Kreis is a contemporary of mine. Actually, he's a year older than me, and he played football in leagues prior to the MLS. He was in the very beginning of MLS. He's one of the top 10 scorers in the league. I have to give him that. And one year he started as a player and they fired the manager and he took over. That's how he got his first job. Something like that will never happen in modern MLS. Let's just throw that out there. And his tactics, his philosophy, everything about who he is from a bygone era. He has not moved forward with new tactics, new techniques, new players, new type of players, new visions. Sports, like everything else, is fluid and expands and adjusts and changes. And I don't think that Jason Kreis has done so. Jason Kreis was hired in New York City in 2015 based on his reputation as a great MLS coach at Salt Lake City. But he failed to even get them to playoffs. He even finished below Orlando City, who was the other expansion team that year. They finished 8th. Orlando City finished 7th. He failed to make playoffs. The only time that New York City has failed to make playoffs in their existence was in 2015 under him. He is fired after 1 year. And everybody, oh my God, what's the channel reaction? Give him time, give him time, give him time. I used to think like that. You need to give people time. The problem is that in sports, time is money. And people are not going to give you time if they don't see progress. Orlando City made a huge mistake firing Adrian Heath. And we can debate if he needed to be fired or not. We can debate that. But when you look at what he was able to accomplish in Minnesota versus what Jason Kreis did in Orlando, then we can say that Adrian Heath was a better manager. He comes to Orlando in a team fighting for a playoff spot. And he leaves Orlando in 2016, failing to make playoffs by a point. Outrageous. 2017 comes around, and yes, I have to give it. He had a beautiful run of games, unbeaten, got Orlando City to be top of the league. But then after that, he just lost games over and over and over and over. And his reasons are like, well, fitness, or players did not do what I was telling them to do, or I just don't have the proper weapons. It takes time. Trust the process. Okay, I bought into that like a dummy. Then in 2018, he revamps the whole team again. And Orlando City ends up with the worst record, allowing the most amount of goals in a season. Thank God FC Cincinnati took that awful record away from us. And it was Orlando City who scored a goal to take it away from them. So he gets fired after losing 9 games in a row. And how is he rewarded? He is giving the keys to the US 23, under 23. Can you believe that? Jesus Christ, soccer, football is stale, is predictable. His players feel uninspired. And I can tell you this, Benjamin Michel and Andres Perea, who are Orlando City players, are complete different people when they're under Oscar Pareja. Benjamin Michel, last season, scored a goal when Orlando City was down a man, and he had 3 defenders on him and the goalkeeper, and he scored a goal to win the game against Columbus Crew, the eventual champion of MLS in 2020. That same dude, under Jason Kreis, looked lethargic, did not know what he was doing, and looked frustrated, and was a bench player. Andres Perea, on the other hand, a man who switched from Colombia to the US for this mess, I hope that he's not regretting that decision, is a constant enforcer in the midfield, distributing the ball through the channels, being a pest in offense and defense. And here, it was just some guy jogging up or down. Why? Because the tactics, my friends. An army can have all the tools, the latest technology. But if you have a general that does not know what he's doing, you're going to lose the war. That's exactly what happened last night. Our federation grabbed a man that had failed twice in the biggest stage of our country's football and rewarded him, giving him the U23s. Unacceptable. Moving forward, the United States should appoint people who are willing to take us forward. I am tired of seeing the good old boy MLS 1.0 club continuing to take over our national football. And I know, because I haven't mentioned the third type of, well, let me review that. The three types of trolls. Those guys that basically come out and laugh at us from overseas. Then you have the guys that are blaming everything because, oh, it's MLS. We don't have pro relegation. I don't see how any of that helps the national player. But I digress. And lastly, those people that go, well, the women win, the women. Listen, the women have no competition. You know why? Let me look straight into the camera. You know why? Because the world gives two shits about women's sports, especially football. That's it. You heard it from me. Nobody cares. Because while the women's national team fills arenas, when was the last time you saw the same place full for an NWSL game? And I'm going to tell you, Orlando City was giving free tickets to the Orlando Pride, to their season ticket holders a few years back. Like, here, you can have free tickets to go watch them. You know what I did? I never asked for them. And I even asked people, hey, I got these tickets. You want them? Nobody wanted them. That's it. I'm sorry to tell you that women are not a draw. And that's the reason why in the United States for years, the boys play American football and the girls play soccer. And that's how we got good. And now, if you look at our national team, is a crop of white women, because this game, still in the United States, a game of those who can afford it, not those who have the talent. Because when you ask the general public in the United States what they think about American soccer or football, what's the first thing that comes to their head? They will tell you little white kids in suburbia kicking a ball. That's what they will tell you. Because our national team does not represent us. While the men's side has a bunch of Hispanics born in the U.S., the women's side is all white women. Eventually, here and there, they throw some, biracial girl just to give it some sort of diversity. But if you look at Latin American teams, they are full of American women who happen to have an ambiguous relationship to that particular country. Why? Because the U.S. will continue to be the best source of players in the world because we actually cared about the women's sport. But the fact is that the rest of the world doesn't. So to say the women win is incredulous because the women have no competition whatsoever. In the game of football, going to every single one of your games, scoring 5, 6, 7 goals is an abnormality. I don't even know why the U.S. bothers to have goalkeepers because the other teams never manage to mount any sort of attack. So, with that said, the situation is one where I am upset. Losing sucks. And if you are going to be a sports fan, you're going to see a lot of that. Winning is a rare commodity. That's why when you win and when you lift trophies, you need to enjoy it to the fullest because it might never happen again. With that said, I blame what happened in Guadalajara on Jason Kreis and the Federation. This was a situation of management. This was a situation of tactical application because I'm telling you right now, those same players are going to go back to their teams and are going to perform. And lastly, I don't understand if MLS was built with the first rule in mind, developing American players. Why is it that the Federation does not find MLS teams that refuse to release players to the national team? It is an embarrassment. It is sad to see that club and country does not apply to particular teams that are marquees in the league. I have to say that we need a complete shakeup in the Federation. I have to say that we need people in the Federation that have no interest or is associated with MLS, because it looks like MLS gets away with some things for particular teams and particular players. And we continue, when it comes to the management, to appoint the good old boy system of, I know this guy or this guy needs a job. That needs to end, because what's going to happen is you're going to frustrate the American fan to the point where that same apathy, that same disappointment will translate to the National League. And I think, as someone that has been here from the very beginning of the resurgence of football in this country, that will mean that all this work throughout these 3 decades will go to waste. With that said, thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe, consider subscribing. This channel is actually dedicated mostly to Orlando City, just to let you know. And I'll see you next time.